I got the call at 3:17 a.m., which should have been my first clue that nothing about this was going to be simple. My mom's voice was tight, clipped, like she'd been practicing for months how to sound calm without actually being calm. "Julia, it's your father, he's in the hospital," she said, and even through the static of our old landline, I could hear the strain. I sat up in bed, blinking at the ceiling like it was supposed to tell me what to do next. I haven't seen my dad in over a year, not really, not since I moved out of that house on Willow Street, the one where every wall had ears and every shadow seemed to remember the last fight. The idea of going back made my stomach twist. But I couldn't not go. Driving through the sleepy streets of our town, I felt like I was slipping into a memory I'd been trying to bury. The neon sign of the diner we used to haunt flickered in the rain, and I remembered Mom scolding me for staying out too late, Dad leaning on the counter, grinning like he owned the world. That was before everything got complicated. When I pulled into the driveway, the air smelled like wet leaves and old wood. The house hadn't changed, not really. The same peeling paint, the same crooked mailbox. I hesitated on the porch, my hand hovering over the doorbell, wondering if they even wanted me there. Inside, it was quiet. Too quiet. The clock in the hallway ticked loudly, each second echoing in the empty space. Mom was in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug that probably used to belong to my dad. She didn't look up. "He's sleeping," she said. Then added, almost like an afterthought, "Your sister's upstairs." I nodded and went to the living room, the old furniture groaning under its own weight. Dust motes floated in the single shaft of streetlight coming through the curtains. I spotted a photo on the mantel, Dad in a fishing hat, my sister barely a teenager, Mom smiling that brittle, polite smile that never reached her eyes. A pang of nostalgia hit me, sharp and unwelcome. Then I heard her, my sister, Jenna, laughing. Soft, but with a sharp edge, like she was hiding something behind it. I froze. Something about that sound didn't belong in this house anymore. "Julia." Mom's voice brought me back. I swallowed. "Yeah, I'm here." Mom finally looked at me, and I saw it, fear, but not for Dad. Fear like a secret was about to spill. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. That's when I knew, whatever had happened, this wasn't just about Dad. And whatever it was waiting for me inside that house. Jenna was sitting on the stairs, knees tucked under her chin, phone clutched in one hand. When she saw me, the smile vanished instantly. She looked older than high school, more poised, but the same edge lingered in her eyes, as if she knew something I wasn't supposed to. "Hey," I said quietly, perching next to her. Her phone snapped shut, but the tension between us was almost physical. "Hi," she answered flatly. Then she looked down at the worn carpet. "So, you actually came?" "Yeah," I said. "Mom called." Jenna shook her head, a faint, bitter laugh escaping her. "She didn't tell you everything, did she?" My stomach sank. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Forget it." Her tone was sharp, like a knife. But I could tell she was wrung out, holding back something important. She was a closed book with pages missing. We heard footsteps above us. Mom emerged from the kitchen, holding a mug of tea that had gone cold hours ago. "Your father," she started, then paused as if weighing each word. "His, complicated." "Complicated." I echoed, feeling tension coil in my chest like a spring about to snap. "Julia, don't dig," she said. "Some things are better left buried." "Burying things hasn't worked in this family." I shot back, louder than I meant to. Surprise flashed in her eyes. Mom exhaled, but said nothing. I saw it then, her struggle with some invisible weight, a life balanced on the razor-thin line between truth and lies. That night, I tried normalcy. I cooked pasta in the kitchen, the smell mixing with the dampness coming in from the rain-soaked yard. The old wood smelled faintly of mildew and something floral that I couldn't place. Mom's perfume? Dad's old cologne? I couldn't tell. Every creak of the floorboards made my stomach jump, every soft sigh from Mom like a ghost brushing past. I felt like an intruder in my own past. Finally, Jenna approached me in the kitchen. "You don't get it," she said. "You weren't here. You left." And now, her voice faltered, on the verge of confessing something she didn't dare. Just, don't ask questions you're not ready to hear. But I was ready. My hands shook, my stomach twisted, but I had to know. The next few days were a tangle of half-revealed truths. I found letters Jenna had tried to hide in drawers, notes in Dad's old journal that seemed more like confessions than mundane thoughts, small transactions in bank accounts that weren't supposed to exist. I started seeing patterns: tension between Mom and Dad, strange connections Jenna had, things Dad was hiding that hinted at more than family disagreements. One night, I found a folded note tucked under Dad's pillow. In his shaky handwriting, he had written, "Family isn't what we think it is. It's what we survive." I repeated it to myself, letting the words sink in. It wasn't just a quote, it was a warning. And that's when it hit me. The things happening in this house weren't just old grudges or small betrayals. They were the surface of something deeper, darker. And my being here might have been the spark waiting to ignite it all. The night Dad was discharged from the hospital, the house felt smaller than ever. Rain tapped on the roof like a ticking clock, each drop echoing in the rooms as if it knew the tension inside. I followed Mom and Jenna upstairs to Dad's bedroom, trying not to let my unease show. Dad was in bed, pale but with that same stubborn glint in his eyes. "Julia," he croaked, voice rasping. "You came back." "I did," I said. My throat was tight. I needed to know what's really going on. He smirked weakly, then coughed. Mom hovered near the doorway, arms crossed, her face taut. Jenna leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching me like she was waiting for me to fall apart. "Some things," Dad said slowly, "aren't what you think. I did what I had to keep this family together." "Keep us together?" I asked, incredulous. "By hiding things, lying to us, making Jenna carry secrets." Jenna's face twisted. "Don't act like you understand, Julia," she snapped. "You left. You don't know what it was like." I felt a flicker of anger, sharp and consuming. "Maybe not," I said, my voice trembling. "But I know enough to see we're all being hurt by the same lies." Dad's eyes softened, then hardened again. "I thought I was protecting you. Protecting all of you. But maybe I was just afraid." Mom finally spoke, voice quiet but steady. "Afraid of losing control. Afraid of admitting the past was wrong." The air between us hung heavy. I could hear the rain, the distant hum of the town, the slow drip from the ceiling that had always driven me crazy as a kid. And then Jenna's voice, small now, almost a whisper. "It's too late for protecting, isn't it?" I looked at her, at Mom, at Dad. And I realized something. The house wasn't just full of secrets, it was full of fear. Fear of truth, fear of change, fear of what surviving really meant. I took a deep breath. "Maybe it's not too late," I said. "Maybe we can face it. Together. Or, at least, honestly." Dad let out a shaky laugh. "Family isn't what we think it is," he said, echoing the note I found. "It's what we survive." It hit me then, the weight of those words. This wasn't about right or wrong. It was about surviving. And surviving meant choosing the battles, choosing when to forgive, and sometimes choosing to walk away. The storm outside eased a little, though the tension inside remained. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't even have all the pieces. But for the first time in years, I felt like maybe we could start putting them together. And deep down, I knew the house on Willow Street would never be the same. Not the way we were. Not the way I was. But maybe that was okay. By the time I left Willow Street, the rain had stopped, and the night air smelled of wet asphalt and crushed leaves. I paused on the porch, taking a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few days settle over me like a heavy blanket. Mom had stayed behind with Dad. Jenna and I exchanged a glance. No words, just the silent acknowledgement that things had shifted irrevocably. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, like she was letting me carry a piece of the burden I hadn't asked for, but somehow needed. Driving back to my tiny apartment in the city, I replayed everything in my mind. Dad's confession, Mom's quiet strength, Jenna's guarded honesty. And that note I found, the one that had haunted me: family isn't what we think it is. It's what we survive. It made sense now. Survival wasn't just about enduring pain or secrets. It was about knowing when to fight and when to let go. It was about choosing honesty over illusion, even if that honesty hurt. I unpacked my bag and sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the city lights through the window. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. The house on Willow Street would always be a part of me, but it didn't have to define me anymore. And then came the twist, the part one hadn't expected. A message on my phone from Dad. "Julia, I did all of it, not for control, not for money. I wanted to protect the family from people we didn't even know were threats. You'll understand someday. Just trust yourself." I stared at the screen, my stomach tight, my heart racing. He hadn't been the villain I'd imagined. Not entirely. Sometimes survival required choices that felt cruel but were meant to shield those you love. I smiled, bitter and sweet all at once. Maybe forgiveness wasn't about absolving the past. Maybe it was about accepting that some truths were messy, some people flawed, and some families complicated beyond measure. I opened a window and let the cool night air in, smelling the city and feeling alive for the first time in weeks. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I did know one thing: I was free to survive on my own terms now. And for the first time, that felt like enough.